Welcome to April and Debbie Dish the Truth on Weight Loss, where we share the raw, real, and sometimes messy truth about our weight loss journeys.
I am Debbie, a weight loss coach who has lost 100 pounds and have been living my life in maintenance for 4 years.
And I'm April, a weight loss coach, currently down 77 pounds and continuing my journey to lose another 100.
Together, we'll explain the ups, downs, and everything in between, showing you that lasting weight loss is possible no matter where you are on your path.
And today we had an email come in from Brenda, and she wrote in that she wants to know, what do we suggest to someone who has fallen off the wagon of doing the basics that she was doing so well just 6 months ago. Life has just been throwing curveballs in the setting of surprise stressors. And for this former slash current slash stress eater slash comfort eater, it's really doing a number on me. She's gained 7 pounds since Thanksgiving, which is when the very first big stressor came. So it all seems very overwhelming to her, and she wants to talk about how to get back on track. And she'd like examples on when we've been off track, what we have done to get back on.
Oh, uh, I think we both have great examples of,
Yeah.
and I think that is, again, something that is perfect with, or imperfect with our weight loss journeys is we are always going to have times that we are just going the way we want, and then something happens and it changes. So, what has been your most recent thing that maybe not most recent, but the most stressful thing lately that you've
So for me, I think even I've touched upon it before as well, is navigating life without my mom. She passed in 2020, and we had a great relationship. We also had a very trying relationship, but fundamentally we both loved each other, and it was a really big loss of my life. I would call her on my way home from work all the time and talk to her on my way home, and that's definitely a time that I often miss her the most, just
Mm.
driving home after my day and sharing my day with her. And last year, just in general, on my weight loss journey, I think I really hit a path where I was just struggling with what would work for me and what was feeling good to me to do. And then holidays came up. So that was the most recent. And I just felt very overwhelmed by not having my mom here, and um, navigating enjoying the holiday, but also missing her. And November is my birthday. And I talked about, if you've listened to the other podcast where I talked about the letters I wrote to myself, that came after getting through November and December. I gained 10 pounds through the holidays. I told myself I was going to eat and do whatever I wanted to deal and process and get through it. And I would deal with it after the holidays. It's kind of what I told myself. And I just couldn't handle it mentally, um, to focus on it during that time, that I still wasn't sure how to deal with the emotions. So my thing, when she asks about examples of getting back on track, so I ended the year 10 pounds gaining, which negated what I had lost, because I had, in the beginning of the year I had lost 10. So I ended the year maintaining, but through those 2 months I gained 10 pounds. And I just was sitting there like a couple weekends before the end of the year, realizing what was happening, what I was doing, kind of coming out of the year. And I just kind of had a chat with myself, and I just said, is this really what I want? Like, I have a choice right now. I can continue to keep doing this, or I can think about a different way. And the first step I made was to turn on a podcast. To be honest, I chose a podcast that I thought would be good to listen to. And I think I think when you're in a moment like that, I think we ourselves necessarily can't always pull ourselves out on our own. Sometimes we can, but if we're in a moment, or moments and weeks go by and months go by, and you're thinking, because Brenda wrote this question in, so she's 100% thinking, this is not how I want to live my life, right? She
Right.
had that moment. So in that moment, she chose to write the email. That was like the first thing. So she's already looking at how to get back on the wagon, in my opinion. That's what
Absolutely.
I feel, right?
Yep.
So now you want to think, okay, what's the next step I can do? So my first step was I listened to a podcast. That inspired me to write my letter to how I wanted to handle February when my mom's birthday came up. So in writing that letter, it really kind of helped pull me out of where I was a little bit more. And I started to think, yes, this is how I really want to handle my emotions. I want to do this. I don't want to eat. So that is what I invite Brenda to do with writing this email and listening to the podcast after it airs. Think of what step could you do next that feels completely doable in your life. So when she talks about the basics, doing the basics, I just look at them as the basics of life, right? We're all learning that getting enough sleep, getting enough water, getting enough nutrients, all of those things really help your body to feel good and safe to lose weight.
Mm.
Now, sleep when you're stressed or emotional, like I didn't sleep very well during those times,
Yeah.
in November, December, because I was very emotional and distraught, and you're tired or you're worried or you're upset. So I then had to learn how to rest my mind at night, right? There's little things to do, but not telling yourself you have to do it all at once.
Mm.
That is very overwhelming. And so I just started with making my plan. Now I'm doing something different that I've talked about. I am in a process where I'm um, using macros and calories to work with my body to give it enough nutrients throughout the day. And I'm really focusing on that. So I started with putting my food, which is just another way to plan. It's just a little, it's how you look at it, right? It's just a little bit like we talked about. I mentioned before, I think just having the bumpers at the bowling alley, just some
Yeah.
guidelines to make sure that I feel good throughout the day. My brain's working. I'm not distracted because I'm hungry, all of these things. But I really took the time to write the letter, which was super helpful to me. So, but everybody's so different. So that's where I think, Debbie, it would be helpful too, because I know we are foundationally the same of what our goals are, but we approach things differently. So what have you done in these situations that got you to start pulling away from
I think acknowledging it first is the first thing. Like when I have gotten off track from how I want to live my life and I'm showing up differently, I can hear my negative self-talk come back in so quickly. And that is such a reminder to me that I'm not where I need to be. And so that has been really helpful to realize and acknowledge. And I like you said, I pick one thing. Like right now, I will tell you, our bodies, I always say keep blooming. I've got my sunflower on today. I'm all sunflowered out. And our bodies are a flower. Our bodies, us feeding ourselves and drinking water and getting the sun, like we are growing our body to what we want it to be and supporting our bodies to be what we need to be to show up in the world. So right now, I know my body is missing some water. So I think it's acknowledging what we're missing, hearing the sign, the messages really that we're giving ourselves that tell us we're slipping into not bad, to old routines, and acknowledging the stress, right? You're feeling stress. Today I was sitting on the couch before I came up to talk with you, and Kevin said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I've got a lot of anxiety right now. I can just feel it in my body." And he said, "Well, do you know why?" And I didn't, but our bodies give us a message for, like when we're feeling that stress, it's saying something. Your body is asking for something. And learning that for me that food doesn't fix stress, even though I think that it does, I think that is important. So knowing that I can pick one thing to work on to get back where I need to be, and when I'm ready, I can add something else in, concentrate more on my sleep or concentrate more on being what I'm going to eat, being aware of that during the day. So I'd say acknowledging, because and you said to her, you know, she hasn't quit. She hasn't given up. She's here writing, Brenda, you're writing the letter and you're saying the things. So you haven't given up and you aren't off track. You just need to turn the wheel. Just maybe not even off track, just keep going just a little more forward.
I think that's a great thing you were just saying. You're not off track. I think we always, even in, she wrote it too, Brenda wrote it, off the wagon, on the wagon. I think it goes back to what I mentioned briefly in the podcast. I think it was last week. We always talk about consistency, right? Where
Mhm.
people think that means every day I have to do 100% and great and whatever. And then I was listening to a podcast that was talking about resiliency. And I think that's really where a lot of the keys of success lie, is not necessarily I got up and did my workout every single day. It was I did not feel good on Tuesday and I did not get up and do my workout. Wednesday, I woke up and said, okay, I'm feeling a little bit better. Am I willing to do it? And I was, and I did it. So in this moment, if you're telling yourself, I fell off the wagon, that feels very
So
defeating. I
bad.
failed.
Yeah.
I didn't do a good job. I didn't show up for myself. These are all the things that tack on to that phrase. I know it's a phrase we all commonly use. So I'm not like saying, it's going to come out again. But if you are able to try to adjust that thought and tell yourself, okay, how can I continue on my journey? That
Hmm.
feels, to me anyway, that feels very different. Yesterday didn't quite go as I had hoped. How can I continue on today? What can I do in this moment today? And in that sentence, it feels more empowering, right? To me, that's how I would envision it. And I know that's what I work on talking to myself about because um, if I just focused on the fact that I gained 10 pounds in 2 months, I would not have moved forward. That would not have propelled me forward.
You would
I
have
did not.
stayed stuck
I,
there.
Right. I had that moment where I thought, okay, this is not what I want. So what can I do now? I could not focus on what I didn't do. I had to focus on that moment and what I was going to do. And then you build your next step from there. And you just gain strength again and you gain momentum again. And I think the way we talk to ourselves when we're already feeling stressed or anxious, and then we put more negative connotations on it, it just weighs you down
Yeah.
and makes it difficult to move forward.
And before this, before we started recording, and you and I were talking, and you've mentioned this in previous podcasts, how important the word choices
Yes.
is to you. And I think that in addition to the word choices, the word continuing should also be a very important phrase to remember because like you said, off the wagon, like we always say off the wagon. Everybody says that. But like you said, we don't take the time to think of what that is saying to our brain and what we're really digesting with that phrase. And so you're not off the wagon, you're continuing. You haven't quit, you're continuing. And these are all little bumps along the way. And I had some doctor's appointments last week that ended up stressing me out a little bit. And so, I thought it was okay. Friday I seemed okay. Saturday was a tough day. And then Sunday, I let it all come in and I knew that I was not in a right headspace to process it and just remind myself that I'm okay in this moment. And in this moment, I'm all right. It was the stress and the worry came in, and 2.5 plates later of nachos and cookies. And for those listening, you can't see it, but a normal size cookie, I ate half a dozen of them. And my body isn't used to that anymore. And it rebelled. I mean, it was mad at me and it let me know. And so I think that in the moments when you stress eat and you feel yucky after you've done it. I had a friend, and I think I've mentioned this, record a little video, a little message to yourself and say, you know what? Today I stress ate. It really didn't solve anything. It added more frustration and feeling of not completing it. So when you find yourself in that situation again, like you chose to break where you were by listening or to regain your footing by listening to a podcast, it got you back into the groove. And I think that this message to yourself could also be another way to like break your moment in that stress to listen to this kind of like your letter, right? A little message to yourself later.
Yes. Yes. And as you were talking, I liked how you said continuing on the road. So most of us, especially emotional eaters who identify as emotional eaters, there's going to come times in life that you may do that. There's times in my life that I've still binged. I used to binge daily. Now it's maybe once every few months if something happens, and it gets further and further between, hopefully, as it has so far. But if you're driving down a road, right, sometimes you have to take a pit stop. You have to either use the bathroom, you have to get a drink of water, you have to get gas for your car. You have to take care of something. You have to take care of you have to take care of your car. Sometimes on the journey of weight loss, we have to take a pit stop. Life is overwhelming. Life is just right now, my priority has changed. My priority is dealing with, we don't know what Brenda's, and nor does she have to share with us, but we don't know what her big stressors are. But in the sense of, even I can just compare it to a life stressor of losing my mom, or we had to put our cat down, a couple years ago. That's emotional. I did not prioritize losing weight during those times, and that's okay. I think we
Mhm.
really make it mean something's wrong with us that we didn't continue on cracking food or drinking water or making a plan, and it's not. I understand we make it feel that way because we're so in a hurry to get to our goal, right?
Yeah.
We're just like, oh, this is just putting me further behind. But we also have the opportunity to look at it that you took care of yourself the way you needed to in that time. So, like, I have a client who went through major changes in her life. Her spouse almost died. It was very tragic. He did not. He lived everything's, it's good. But
Yeah.
she did not know. And major changes are going on in her job, just so many major life things. Her whole world was flipped upside down. And tried to help her with realizing, like, right now, your priority is taking care of yourself. And if that means right now you're setting aside making a plan and you're comfortable with that, that is okay. Some
Yeah.
people might need to do that to feel like they have control of something, or whatever. But I think what I'm trying to say is, when we go through tough times, and if we don't handle it how we think the ideal way is to handle it, we feel like we have failed somehow. And going through whatever Brenda's going through, if she's like, okay, right now, I'm going to put the planning on the back burner. I'm going to do my best to still mindfully eat, or whatever she feels she's capable of doing that's not going to overwhelm her, so that she's still in touch with her body. That's great. And then if things in a month or so, she feels like, okay, maybe I can start making a plan again, then that's when you do that.
Yes.
Like, losing yourself and making yourself feel bad or beating yourself up because you're not doing something that you feel you have to, it's again a choice that we can wait until we're ready again, and that's okay,
And
right?
that is okay. And I
Mm-hmm.
also think, she gained 7 pounds
Mm-hmm.
during the holidays and during this stress. And you know what? Our bodies are always fluctuating in weight. And you know what? I gained 12 pounds over the holidays. And for me, that was a lot. It got me a bit like, oh, because when I gained my weight, like every time I went up another 10 pounds, I'd be like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And then I ended up at 240. So now I am definitely more aware of it. And Brenda, what I want you to remember is you may have gained 7 pounds, but look back when you have experienced other stressors and you have eaten to make it through that, or you did not, because this may, or it may be the first time that you've had a little bit of a pause in your normal habits toward your goals. And it may not be, but last time you may have paused. What did you do to get started? Look at your own history and remind yourself, I don't know how much you've lost, but you've lost this weight before and it's temporary. You know how to do it. It's just taking a breath and giving yourself, like you said, April, giving yourself permission to take care of yourself right now with whatever stress you're living through. And I think you said it perfectly. When you're ready to add that back in, then you do that. But no, you're not failing. You're not failing.
And this and it's I'm glad you shared that too, that you gained, not that you gained, I'm sorry you gained, but you shared your story too, because I think we put so much in this number that we gained. I gained 10 pounds, she gained 7. There's multiple people in life who gained weight during the holidays, who once the holidays were over, just went back to their normal routine and lost it and didn't make it mean something negative about the person they were. That's what we do. Many of us who have a big amount of weight to lose, or even sometimes the people who have a smaller amount of weight to lose, when we are invested so much to want to get to a goal and feel good about our goal, when we have a gain, we make it mean our value has gone down. We
Yeah.
make it mean, again, like we were both saying, you didn't show up, I didn't do a good job, I failed. Where the person who doesn't have the emotional side of it attached as we do gained that 5 or 10 pounds during the holiday, and we're like, okay, holidays are over, back to normal routine, and bump things up a little bit maybe, and maybe drank more water than normal or however they did it, but they didn't attach emotions to it. It was
Hmm.
just, I had the holidays, I overindulged, they're done. Let's time to move on. It's 2020. You know what I mean? It's really the what we make that number, what that 7 pounds means to her. And I think that might be a great journal thing for her, for Brenda, is to think about, what does that mean to you that you've gained 7 pounds? And is that true? Are those things true? Because I'm pretty sure Brenda's still showing up at her job. She's still showing up as a partner if she's married. I'm pretty, I think she is, because I kind of know Brenda. But um if your daughter or your sister, anybody out there, you're showing up in your life in other ways, so that particular weight you may have gained does not take all of that other thing away.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we do. And that makes it so heavy on us, because we just feel like we're such a failure because of it.
Mm. Yeah. And we're not. Like just remember, I'm not failing, I'm learning. That's
Mhm. Yeah.
it's it it may not feel believable to you when you say it, because it takes a practice to do that. But the more you practice it, the more you will embrace and you'll let go of feeling the failure and embracing the learning.
Oh, I love that you said that. And practice, I agree 100%. So in the planner that I use sometimes, every day I would write down um 3 things about myself, which I really struggled with in the beginning. And I finally came up with 3, and it was, I am determined, I am learning, I love, and I am loved. And
Mm.
I wrote that same thing down every day for over a year, a couple of years. And somebody asked me one time, like, um, why do you write the same thing every day? And that's just what I told them, because I keep wanting to tell my brain, this is the truth. This is the truth. And it's
Yeah.
practicing hearing that for myself. And I don't need to write that down anymore. I do think that to myself. Like when, you know, I wrote that letter to myself about how I wanted to handle February, I immediately told myself, yes, this is how I'm determined. This is how I'm learning. I just keep trying. And if something doesn't work, I try something else. And that's where Brenda is doing a great job, because she's reaching out, she's asking for some guidance. And even though we can tell her what we do, again, she wants to try it and see if it works for her. I
Hmm.
would just, sometimes I even just Google like how to deal with things, and I see what they suggest and try. If something stands out to me, I try that. There's so many resources, there's so many podcasts, Googles, coaches, all kinds of things. And I think that finding what works. Some people are find it really relaxing to take a bath. I do not. I am a
I do
shower
not.
person, but I will sometimes put candles on, turn off the lights, put on music, take a nice shower. There's so many options out there that might just help you bring you down to listening to yourself and hearing what you're thinking, right?
Yeah, I love that idea of the shower with lights off and candles. I might try that.
It's
Like, oh,
nice. I love
that could be.
it.
So you're talking about the letter. I'd love to, you want to share what we're going to do for a challenge this week?
Yes. So, well, first, I think we had a challenge last week.
Oh, yes.
And before we introduce the new one, so we had talked about 10 things that we appreciate about our body. And Debbie and I decided that we would share two of our things that we wrote on our list, and then we'll post the rest of the 10 in the Facebook page. And so, Debbie, I'll invite you to share your two first.
All right. I love my gray hair. Now, I have to tell you, when I started growing my hair out 2 years ago, had no idea what it was. I had died for so long. I had no idea what was going to happen. And I mean, it's pretty much done. And it's fun. And I don't think it makes me look older. I really love that. And I love my smile. And I shared, I think it's my superpower because it's like my calling card. Like when I get to see you, I get to like every time I see you, my smile is so bright and happy to see you. And sometimes I just smile to myself because it's warm and inviting. And I used to be so self-conscious of my teeth and my space, and but it all makes up that smile. So those are the two things that I wanted to share. What do you have?
I think it's hysterical because one that I was going to share is my hair. I wrote how I love my hair. And what I love about my hair is that it's very thick, especially now as I am getting a little older. I tend to lose some more hair, and I love that it's not so gray. So, as you're talking, I was just like, that's priceless because,
Oh,
again, what works for one person doesn't work for another, and vice versa. I don't have
oh,
anything against gray, and I think you do look beautiful with gray.
thank
I just
you.
don't necessarily think I would pull it off well. And my mom always dyed her hair. And I just feel like, oh, I don't have enough to even think about doing that. So that makes me so happy because I don't really want to dye my hair if I don't have to. And I don't know. And maybe if I go gray, I'll like it. I don't know. But that was just funny that I wrote the
That is
opposite.
so funny. Yes.
And then the other thing I was going to share on my list is my hands. So it's funny when I was doing this exercise that a lot of what I wrote positive about, I also have negative thoughts about. So I've done thought work on my body through my coaching and through my certification coaching program I went through. And that's how I've been learning to approach my body because if I just take it at face value of the skin and how the skin is represented, I'm not going to say I'm a fan of most of the areas. Like there's a lot on there. And then I learned, okay, I could just continue to look at my body, just skin, and focus on that. But then I started to look at what about these parts of my body that I don't necessarily like, do I like about it? And that led me to my hands. And when I look at my hands almost, well, I look at my hands every day and multiple times a day because my wedding rings are on my hands. And my rings remind me of two of the best days. I'm going to get all emotional. Two of the best days of my life, my husband proposing and the day we got married. And it's just, I have not lost that feeling. When I look down at them, I remember the day, I remember where we were, I remember what he said. Same thing for the wedding day. And so that is what I focus about my hands. What I don't like about my hands is the wrinkles and they're getting older, they're showing their age. But I looked beyond that and, beyond it just that's how I started looking at all the parts of my body. And that has totally changed the way I look on a day to day basis. I still have the thoughts, just like I said, I see the wrinkles on the hands, but I don't stay on that thought that long because then
Mhm.
I see the rings and I focus on the rings and my life and how lucky I feel about having who I have met. And we met later on in life. I met Kevin when I was 40. Oh my goodness, 43, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, 43. I think I was 43 when we met, and he was 40, and it's both our second marriage. And I met Kevin when I weighed 300 and I was 360. I know that for sure when I married him in October of 2021. And I say that to share that because I know and I've seen a lot on Facebook pages, women who are bigger of my size really thinking they're never going to find a good person or partner, whatever, And I'm telling you, for a person that I went through my life always taking the worst guy, we don't have enough time to get into my history of love life. But to know that I could work on myself, and I took like a year off from dating, and that's where I started to try to work on myself, and meeting Kevin, who is just such I cannot rave about him enough. He's just such a good person. But the point is, when you can love yourself to any degree, then you know that you are worthy of being treated well. And it truly does not matter your size. And the other thing that this might sound a little dark, but the other thing that when I was because I've been large since I was in my 20s, my late teens, early 20s, and there are superstars, gorgeous women and men who have terrible relationships, and we hear about it in the news, and people who have, not valued themselves. It's when it really comes down to day-to-day life, it's not the physical. It's really who you are and how you see yourself and what you demand as value. And I know this kind of went off of Brenda's question, but it goes back to how we look at ourselves
Mhm.
and value ourselves. And Brenda valued herself enough to write in the email. So she is not off the wagon completely. And she took a first step. And I think that, um, her journaling about what that 7 pounds means to her and what she thinks her first step could be, which also leads into the challenge.
Certainly.
So the challenge is we will ask people to write a letter to yourself about a stressor or an event that might be coming up that you're not sure how to handle, and just write how you want to handle it. If it's in the next month or couple of months, I will share. I actually didn't end up reading my mom's letter or my letter to myself for my mom's birthday. So I'm going to share that anyway. I'm going to open it, read it, and take a picture of it. And I'll share that on the Facebook page on Monday. Um, And people who do this challenge do not have to share if it's too personal, but we would love if you just posted saying I wrote the letter and how it helped you, or that you just enjoyed doing it or whatever. But just let us know you tried it. And I think if Brenda took a moment to try to write a letter to herself about whatever stressor is going on and how she wants to show up for it or how she can see herself showing up for it, I think that would be helpful.
I think you're right, and I love your bravery and generosity in sharing that letter, and the fact that you've shared this as a challenge for all of us, but something that you've done. I am going to write a letter to myself to open on Thursday when I have some appointments. And you know what? I will share that later in the week too, because these challenges, we put them out there for you to do, but they're so important for us too, because we're all on this journey together.
The never ending journey. And we don't want it to end, right? We want to be here. We want to be alive
Yes.
and living life. So as long as you're here, you're going to want to try to hopefully be better and grow as a person and yeah,
Yeah.
find the good in things.
Yeah. So next week we are going to answer Renee's question, and she has been down specifically since November to so many reasons, political, personal, and so much right now, and her thoughts are negative. She's aware that it infects all of my life. One of the ways that I feel like I'm showing up in my journey is that I feel tired of judging and hating myself all of the time when I weigh in.
Mm,
Tired of never making enough change to see movement in the scale. So we're going to talk about her question and how we have handled that, and maybe share some things that might help everybody as we move forward in our
Absolutely.
journey.
Yeah, it's a great question and a lot in there to discuss for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and as always, the person, Brenda, who wrote in this letter to us, the email, if there's additional questions or things that you would like us to hit upon next time as well, please let us know. Follow up with us and keep in touch for sure.
Yeah, we are here to support you, and keep the questions coming. Email us at April and Debbie Dish the Truth at gmail.com, or post a comment on Facebook. Go to our Facebook page, still the same, April and Debbie Dish the Truth. And yeah, and we can't wait to talk to you next week.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to say keep blooming, because we are a beautiful flower, and let's feed ourselves, nourish ourselves, and support our growth.
Yes. And as always, wake up willing to do something that feels good to you.
Have a great week.